You are here with the Nevada Department of Wildlife and myself, Jan Nimick, for Lesson 5 of our Introduction to Fly Tying series. This is the Pheasant Tail Nymph, certainly one of my favorite nymphs in my box. Absolutely a go-to fly for pretty much any river in our area. Alright, we're going to start with that same hook, a size 12 2X long nymph hook. And our olive 3/0 thread, or 140 denier. I'm going to build that foundation. This fly is great because it's just 3 pieces. We have pheasant tail fibers, peacock curl, and finally brassy copper wire. Tail of this fly is pheasant tail, and we're going to use tips evened out. And what I mean by evening out is I'm going to pull the fibers individually away from the stem, and by doing so I should be able to even those tips out, making them flat and not at an angle. Once I get that done, I'm going to just pull them off of the stem, trying to keep them bunched together as well as possible. I'm going to measure them up. On this nymph, just like the hare's ear, we want to keep the tail about half the length of the body. I like pheasant tail because I'm going to make a couple of securing wraps to get it down. Once you get it down, as long as you don't make any wraps that are too terribly tight, you can actually move the material under the thread. So if I get to the point where I think the tail is maybe a little bit too long with it, I can actually make an adjustment by pulling it and shortening the tail before I make any really hard securing wraps. But we definitely want to finish the material, or finish it with some securing wraps. Okay, again, I'm going to bring the material all the way back up, just about to the eye, giving myself a little bit of workspace between the eye itself and where the end of the material is. And we got our tail down. Next material going in is the wire. I'm going to start that one where we ended the tail, up near the eye. Try to keep that kind of on the back side or the top of the fly. We'll go all the way back to where we finished the tail off. Just move that out of the way for a moment. Next material, the body, is going to be pheasant tail as well. So with that, I'm just going to take I call it a small chunk, pull that off, and I'm going to tie this in tip first and actually use this to wrap the body. So I'm going to trim them up just so they're even. I don't want to cut too much of them back, because if these get short, they get real hard to work with. Here I'm going to use the diagonal drop to put the material in, and then I'm going to bring the thread forward to about halfway to the eye. Now I'm going to take and wrap that pheasant tail material forward, creating a body. Secure that. 2 wraps on the left, 2 wraps on the right, 2 more on the left. And then we'll trim that. Now at this point, we're going to bring our wire forward, but we're not going to wrap the same direction that we did with the body. We're going to wrap what's called cross wrap, or kind of wrapping the opposite direction. What that is going to do is it's going to help secure that pheasant tail down. Pheasant tail tends to be pretty brittle, so the wire certainly is going to help keep that from breaking and falling apart. We're going to secure that same way, 2 on the left, 2 on the right, or 3, 2 more on the left, and then we're going to use that same twisting like we did in the hare's ear to break that off. Alright, next material in, you guessed it, pheasant tail, is going to be our wing case. So I'm going to pull off about the same size chunk that I did for the tail and the body. And I'm going to do this one tips first, or tie this in tips first. but I'm going to cut a little bit more of the tips back than I did when we wrapped the body, just because I want a little bit more of the material in the fly, or I want a little bit thicker part in the fly. And as those tips start to go back towards the stem, it's going to get much thicker. So from here, I'm going to use that diagonal drop, just like the hare's ear. A couple nice securing wraps, and then I want that on top. I've kept that on top of the fly, so we want to continue to keep it there on top. Should look with kind of a gradual comb there. Alright, so we've got our wing case. Next one going in is the Peacock Curl. Peacock Curl's tips, and down by the stem there is a direction to it. We're going to go tips first, and we're going to take about maybe 6 or 8 pieces of the individual pieces of material. Tips first. I'm going to cut back the tips just a little bit to clean it up, make it easier to wrap in. I'm going to use my diagonal drop to secure the material in. Again, I'm not going to crowd that eye. I want to give myself some space to work with. So I've got my pheasant tail wing case and then my peacock curl tied in tips first there. So the peacock curl is again just pretty brittle, just like the pheasant tail. So to make this a little bit stronger, I'm going to make about a half wrap here, and with the material down here, I'm going to gently twist it. If you twist it too much, it breaks, and it's pretty quick to learn how far you can go with it. So with this about here, I'm going to twist it, and I'm twisting it in a counterclockwise direction, so when I wrap or use this material to, just like I did the chenille or the dubbed bodies, I'm going to start on the back and make one wrap next to the last, and we'll use that just like chenille. Again, not crowding the eye. I want to give myself plenty of space to work with. Secure that. 2 wraps on the left, 2 wraps on the right, 2 more on the left. We'll trim that. Okay, second to last step, we're going to put our legs in. Probably the hardest part or most challenging part of this fly. I'm just going to pull some of this material back a little bit less than what we used for the tail. Even up the tips just like I have the rest of the time. I'm going to take those tips and I want them to be a little bit longer than the thorax, or about the same size as the thorax. So that clump, I'm going to take the pinch and actually use that pinch on the side of the fly. Now, again, just like the tail, if those are too long, we can shorten them up a little bit by just pulling on that material, as long as you haven't made any too many securing wraps. We'll trim that down short. And we'll do the same exact thing with the other side. Shorten that up just a little bit. Trim. And finally, last step, we'll pull the wing case over, just like that hare's ear, and make some securing wraps over it. Finally trim. Put our whip finish in. Drop a glue to secure everything. And we've got our pheasant tail nymph.